was, kind of recreate some stories from your past involving people and actions and stuff like that. So.
Right. As I said, I was abandoned when I was 2.5. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch came and did an article on the condition of the living conditions that us children was abandoned in. We was taken into St. Louis County Juvenile Authority. And my father at the time was serving in the United States Navy, and he was abroad, and so they had to use the Red Cross to make special ways for him to come back homeland to get his kids out of juvenile hall. He had to post a $10,000 bond on us, and then we was released into his custody. For those interested, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, it was a front page edition. I didn't see the article myself. I was only reference to it too. But
have you had any contact at all with anyone related to your mother? You said you looked her up when you were like 18 years old or something like that?
I looked her up at a very early age. When at the age of 13, I started traveling across the United States looking for my mother.
Wow.
I would go into different big cities, and I would use the telephone book. For those of you who don't know what a telephone book is, it's a book with a bunch of telephone numbers in it. We ain't got them no more, unfortunately. But I searched for her, and I would go into town. I would go through the white pages, looking under my previous name, and I would call them up and ask them, "Are you my mother?" And they would either sympathize with me or emphasize with me, but they wasn't my mom. So I drove from California to New York, down to Florida, back to California, to Missouri. I'm originally a Missourian. I had done time in the United States military. I served in the United States Army, rank E1. When they found out about my previous hitch with the mental institution, they gave me a honorable discharge and told me to come back in 2.5 years with a waiver from the Secretary of the Army at the age of 19. So I've lived a very interesting life, and I've had experiences that I'll be sharing with y'all in this broadcast that I hope that will be kind of comical to you, but at the same note will be on a more serious note, because this isn't meant to make a lot of laughs. It's meant to get a straightforward message out to y'all.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe to go a little deeper into your search for your mother.
Okay.
I'm not going to try to say, like some psychiatrists try to do, that, well, transvestitism is just somebody who didn't have a proper mother or a proper father. Blame the parents on it,
No.
I'm sure you've heard those arguments,
I've often wondered if one of the reasons why my mother did desert me was because I wasn't a girl at birth. And that's a question that I'll never have answered until good Lord tells me yes or no if he wants to.
Did you get a chance to ask your mother that when you saw her?
No. I seen my mother when I was 18. My other siblings who had a relationship with her that I did not know about. Told me she gave them permission to tell me where she was at the age of 18. Went up there to Phoenix, Arizona, where I had almost given my life 5 years before, almost getting ran over by a 18-wheeler. But there she was. She was staying in Phoenix that whole time, and the kids was going up there to her and seeing her, but I was denied access. So I had a lot of questions in my head. You know, what kind of wrong could I have done that would make her want to hate me? And I did work around her house. I stayed with her for 2.5 weeks. She took me to Tombstone, Arizona, home of the OK Corral. And then after the visit to Tucson, she took me to the Greyhound bus terminal in Phoenix and dropped me off.
Wow.
Told
Like
her not to
you
come
weren't
back.
you weren't transgendered at that time, were you?
No, I had a mental diagnosis, and back in the 50s and 60s and 70s, mental health issues was a nightmare issue with the society's norm.
Hmm.
And they'd rather beat you up and lock you in a cellar than, face the issues. Today we've grown where we don't do that no more, thank God.
You have been very interested. You told me that you're really interested in the study of psychology. You haven't had any academic education, but just you've done a lot of reading in psychology, right?
Yes.
Do you know what behavioralism is?
Yes.
You know? So we don't even need. What school of psychology or what psychologist, I would say, do you most identify? Like someone like Freud or Jung or?
Yeah, I'd say more like Jung, but also I'm not into psychoanalytic therapy, but I am into what they call psychiatric rehabilitative programming services. I have 2 caseworkers. I have a therapist, and I have 2 different doctors right now. That one a psychiatrist and one a regular doctor with the University of Missouri Columbia Clinics.
Do you do better being in contact with these people than you would by yourself?
Yes, if I was by myself, there's no way that this transition would have been as easy as it's been.
Yeah. I think that's a really intelligent way to do it because I'm not a great believer solely in drug therapy. Neither am I a believer totally in talk therapy. But a wise therapist knows how much of one. Yeah, you got it, the balance. But I don't know. I'd like to know a little more about your experience with the Pentecostal movement.
I was brought up a Pentecostal believer. My grandfather was a Pentecostal preacher. My father was not a Pentecostal preacher by no means of the word. He hated religion and he did his best to stay away from it. And he tried to discourage us, but he didn't forbid us.
Can you describe do you have memories of attending Pentecostal services?
Yes, Pentecostal and non-denominational services, which are very similar.
Well, for example, speaking in tongues. You know. Yeah. All right, there we go. I think we got a mind meld here. I didn't mean to talk over you, but I was so curious about that. Suddenly popped in my head. But
now, if you go back to Acts, the 2nd chapter, you'll see that they were speaking the dialect of the earth people. They wasn't speaking a heavenly language.
Oh.
Now, there is praying in the spirit, which is separate than speaking in tongues. Praying in the spirit is when we don't know how to pray a particular prayer. We just how do I say it, Father? And that's the groaning of the Holy Spirit. Now, the way that was explained to me is that when that's going on, the Spirit is making intercession on your behalf, but you're making sounds that is forcing that's getting it out there. I mean, you know, if you hold your breath for so long, and you know, you can only have clean air for so long, and then it's dirty air. You know, so you gotta, and you don't know what you're saying, but when you get up from praying, you feel so much relief. You feel that peace that passes all human understanding, and you're able to go out and say, "Yes, I can face another day." The Pentecostal movement was a good movement. They had a lot of dress codes and such, you know. I liked their dress codes, but they was a dogmatic church, which means that they didn't have a lot of scripture to back them up as far as what the requirements were. If you smoked a cigarette, you lost your salvation. If you took a drink of whiskey, you lost your salvation. See, we ain't saved by works, we ain't men should boast, but we're saved by the grace of God.
Yeah, your description of the I guess echololia, the speaking in tongues, is one of the best descriptions I've heard of it, really. Because lots of people say, well, these are magical languages. No, it's like a breathing. It's like getting the whole mouth exercised.
Yeah, like,
Precisely, yeah. You said that your siblings suffered a similar fate to yours, but that you also suffered at their hands. Can you give me an example of a time when you were bullied or rejected by your siblings?
My sister Ann, who is deceased now, God rest her soul in peace, but she died of a heroin overdose. She was always trying to be Miss Popular, and I was a very religious child when I was growing up. And so she was Miss Worldly, and I was super Christian, this and that. And she hated me to the core. She had blamed me for something that had happened when I was like 4 or 5 years old. And she never did forgive me for the beating that she took from my father, because he thought that she had chucked the mud in her, not me. And she never forgave me for that. And so life was very hectic, you can imagine. She's much older than I am, and I had to listen to her. She's a super babysitter. Go to your room.
You were younger than your two brothers, right?
No, I was the middle child.
Okay.
I had 2 older sisters. Then there was myself, and then there was my little brother. That's all the blood relations.
Okay.
Then later on, there was a half sister added, and there was some step brothers and sisters that was added into the mix.
The thing I was thinking of is your relationship to your brothers. Now they suffered abuse too, but
Yes.
But did they take it out on you, or?
I don't recall a whole lot of their what happened to them. Like I said, I spent 5 years in a mental hospital, and so I was separated from my family during that time. And so, like my sister, Joan, my second oldest sister, I'm the third. She was sexually assaulted. She took it to court. It was thrown out for lack of evidence. Back then, the jury was super presidential during the early 70s. And they thought the father could do no wrong and all that other nonsense, you know.
So she was raped by her father.
Yes.
Yeah. The same man who abused you and
Right.
had to come home from the Navy and that sort of thing. I'll tell you what, I've really got a lot of good material here. Why don't we, I like this idea of taking breaks and coming back, because I get a lot more questions after I see what I've already done. So